All right, so I'd like to welcome you, the audience, and especially welcome our state Democratic primary candidates to our forum for a special election being held for the 4th Middlesex District for state senator. I would like to specifically welcome our primary candidates, State Representative Sean Garbely, currently representing the 23rd Middlesex District, Ms. Cindy Friedman, the former Chief of Staff to the late and great Senator Donnelly, and Ms. Mary Ann Stewart, member of the Massachusetts Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. The event is sponsored by the Burlington Town Committee, and if you do not know, this is not a debate. It is a forum, and there is a difference. And if you do not know, the primary for the special election will be held on June 27th, a Tuesday, and the election will be held on Tuesday, July 25th. The format for this evening's event is for the candidates to comment on a wide range of issues affecting the state and issues that either directly or indirectly affect the town of Burlington and surrounding communities. Candidates will share their views on a wide range of subjects. We decided that because this is not a formal debate and rather a forum, the candidates have received the questions ahead of time, thus allowing you to hear more thoughtful answers. These questions address subjects of revenue shortfall in Massachusetts, economic development, transportation infrastructure, raising revenue, new taxes, renewable energy industry, housing for seniors, the opioid abuse issue, natural resource protection, early screening for dyslexia, state-mandated testing, healthcare, charter schools, climate change, and communication to constituents. It is unlikely we will get to every single question. The flow of the evening is that the candidates will, as the first question indicates, which is an introduction question, have a chance to make their case as to why their experience, education, and training makes them the right person to be elected as our state senator. Then the questions that each candidate has already seen will be asked by myself, so you, the audience, can hear them. We will rotate the order of candidates in which the responses are given. We may not get to all 21 questions. At approximately 8:30 to 8:35, we will depart to some audience-sponsored questions, if any are given, and if there's any, and then if there's no further audience questions, then we might get to a few unasked questions on the list. I expect that the evening will end between 9 and 9:15. We ask for the audience-sponsored questions to be on issues not previously discussed, if possible, and for these questions to be of general applicability to all candidates, so all 3 candidates can express their opinion. The questions should be written down on a sheet of paper and folded in half. There's paper and pens and a basket in back. There's already some questions in the basket. So if you would like to have some questions asked and they have some general applicability, please feel free to write them down. Okay, so because it is important to get to as many questions as possible, 2 minutes each will be allowed for each candidate for their response to questions. Our timekeeper will be Mr. Jack Kelly, and he is sitting in front. When 2 minutes are up, our timekeeper has a flashlight that has a red light on it, and it will remind you that it's time for 1 or 2 more sentences. Okay. At the end of the evening, around 9:10 to 9:15, we will have closing statements from each candidate. The opening and closing statements don't have to be exactly 2 minutes. We felt that maybe 2 to 3 minutes might be an appropriate amount for both an opening and closing statement, and the timekeeper will not be using the red light for the opening and closing statements. We must all understand that some of these questions address issues for which there is no easy solution. The candidates may offer their approach without understandably having an easy solution to offer to you. In some cases where a previous speaker's comments make sense, we may even see the candidates agreeing with a previous speaker, which would be fine too. If you had not already done so, feel free to avail yourself of some refreshments in the back of the room. You can get up at any time and go get water and some other refreshments. The restrooms are to my left, ladies and men's room. There seems to be more people that come in late, and there are some people from the campaigns. If you want to free up some seats, you can, I guess, stand in the back and give the voters some seats. Oh, and one more thing, I have been informed that because it's a public building, we're not supposed to be showing campaign buttons. I guess that's the rule of our town clerk. So I thought I'd let you know about that. The first question, what are the biggest issues facing the Senate district, and what would you do to deal with these issues? Another way of saying this question is, what legislation would you like to see implemented in the current session and the next one? All right, so the first, why don't we go in reverse, start with the reverse order. Ms. Stewart, and then we'll go to Cindy Friedman, and then we'll end with Sean Garbely.
So I'm looking 10 years out, not just 1 or 2 sessions, really taking more of a long view, because that's about how long it takes for legislation to become effective and for policy, and to make policy change. And here's what I see. I see a crisis in privatization for public education. I see a crisis that's been going on for many years in healthcare, and everyone can see that. Yet every developed nation and poor countries in Africa are working toward national health care and solving it as part of the solution to our economic problems in the Commonwealth. We want flexible jobs. We want an innovative economy. We want to address income inequality. We're squandering those opportunities if we don't address education and health care as soon as possible. Did you hear what James Comey had to say last week in his 5-hour testimony? In part, he said, one of the things we radiate to the world is the importance of our wonderful, often messy, but free and fair democratic system and the elections that undergird it. I think that's wonderful. And that's why public education is so important. It's important for each generation to understand how and why the system works, and why it's important that we engage people in their government, not just at election time, but all the time. And that's what I'm proposing to do. Civics education, media literacy is the most effective way to teach civics, to teach literacy, sex education, and digital citizenship. It's all connected. So what will I do? I'll do what good senators do. I'll deepen the partnerships, and I'll listen to your ideas how to address these issues so that we can arrive at shared solutions.
As the Senator's Chief of Staff, and during the time that I've been knocking on doors, I hear 3 things from people in this district. The first one is traffic, the second one is housing costs, and the third one is health care. All of the people that I've talked to have hit in some way on those issues. Now, I think that there are things that we can do for this district in order to alleviate some of that, and it has to do with our transportation networks and how we handle healthcare. I think some of the questions that you have asked us address those 2 issues, so I'm not going to go into that right now. But in terms of what legislation I would work on or want to see over the next year and a half, which is the other part of the question, is, well, first of all, funding the foundation budget. Funding the budget that we use to determine what kind of education money we need to provide a 21st education for our children. And that is a state responsibility. Education is a public good, and the state should play a huge part in funding that. So the one thing we want to do is get more money from the state to fund education. The second pieces that I think are very important, and they have to do with housing costs and traffic, is to increase the minimum wage. The Senator filed a bill in the Senate to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour. This allows people at least to begin to have a cost of living that allows them to live in different parts of this district, and to actually make money so that they can pay for their housing costs. It's not a lot, but it's a step. And then finally, I think we need to look at criminal justice and healthcare. And I think there are a few things that we can be doing in those areas to really make a difference on solving those problems. And I hope that we will talk about this. Thank you.
I think there are many issues facing the Port Middlesex district, specifically here in Burlington, and it's hard to quantify it in one question. But I will tell you a little bit about what I see as my priorities. Implementing the Foundation Budget Review Commission, their recommendations are certainly one of my top priorities because I was one of the original co-sponsors of the Foundation Budget Review Commission when it came before the House. And I worked with members of the House and the Senate to advance it out of committee and pass it on the floor of the House and in the Senate and signed by the governor. The Commission's recommendations state very clearly that we have underfunded public education in all 351 cities and towns by about $500 million a year. And so that means in the area of health insurance costs and special education costs, the state is not meeting what we should be doing in terms of making sure that people receive a quality education. So implementing the Foundation Budget Review Commission, those recommendations are absolutely essential. Public transportation is critical for Burlington. It's critical for the whole district. And a few years ago, you may remember that Governor Patrick came out with a proposal that literally cut all bus lines out of Alewife Station and cut a number of the lines coming up to Burlington. As the chair of the caucus, I work with representatives across the 175 communities of the MBTA to save those lines. But the only way we can really move towards a 21st century transportation system is if we pass my debt relief bill, which would address the $5.3 billion debt that politicians decades ago stacked on the MBTA. And we pay 35 cents in every dollar to debt service. It's not the way we're going to fix our transportation system. I've been leading on the issue. I want to lead on it when I'm in the state senate. And then, of course, it's working with all of you to increase Chapter 70 for education, unrestricted general government aid, Chapter 90, so you're not hitting those bumps in the road on Cambridge Street, and, of course, dealing with water access, because that's a big issue for this district and an important one. And I have a bill to increase funding for water infrastructure, which is incredibly important to this district. Thanks so much.
The next question concerns economic development. It's phrased as, what would you do to spur economic development for your district and the state overall? So we'll go in reverse order this time. Sean, you'll start this time, and we'll go right down the row.
We have worked the past 9 years to invest in key sectors, whether it's high tech, life sciences, and renewable energy. We need to do more of that. We need to use tax credits as a way to bring them to Massachusetts to spur economic development. And if they're targeted, it's a way to do it. I filed legislation to move us towards 100% renewable energy by 2050. And if we move in that sector and in that direction, especially since what's happening in Washington, we address that here in Massachusetts, we would increase over 300,000 jobs in that sector. Something that I think is really, really important and something that we absolutely must do. Obviously, investing in public infrastructure is critical for economic development. Investing in public higher education, 90% of the students who graduate from one of our 29 campuses stay, and they invest in our Commonwealth. They don't leave one of our 351 cities and towns. They stay. We must do more. And I partnered with Ken Donnelly on middle skills. I was the House sponsor of the Workforce Competitiveness Trust Fund. Ken was the sponsor of it in the Senate. Training is absolutely critical for the jobs of tomorrow. And I was proud to partner with Senator Donnelly on that issue. And if elected to the Senate, I would play that leadership role on middle skills. So those are some of the issues that I think are critically important for economic development. Obviously, there's many more, but those are some of the issues that I have worked on and will continue to work on. Thank you.
I look at this issue a little differently. I think that the best way that we can spur economic development is, number one, to keep this state a place where businesses want to come. I don't think we need to give businesses the tax credits that we give them, which takes money out of our economy and gives it to large corporations. I believe that people come to this state and companies because we are a highly educated workforce. We have amazing schools, and we have wonderful communities. And people want to come here, companies want to come here because their workers want to be here. So one of the best things I think that we can do is to ensure that we have a really educated workforce. And that means that we need to invest in our workers, in their training, in our community colleges, in our certificate programs, in our programs that train people in the industries that are coming in to our economy, like advanced manufacturing, like the medical industry, like renewable energies. And that's where we need to put our money, into our workforce. This means that we have to have a really good minimum wage, that we have to ensure that people can, the jobs they do, that at least they begin to have a decent living, okay? I think we can do things like paid family medical leave. That would make us a very, very good state for companies to come to, because they can say, look at the benefits that Massachusetts has. I wrote the Middle Skill Solutions Bill. That is the bill that I did with Senator Donnelly. About that bill. And I'm glad that parts of it passed in the Senate, and I'm glad that parts of it passed in the House, because what it does is it aligns our community colleges and our workforce training centers and our industry together so that we can build and train workers for the industries that are coming to Massachusetts. And I think this continued investment is really important, and that's what's going to spur economic development in this state. Thank you.
So many of the specifics about this area are expressed in the Democratic platform, which is the starting point for where so much of the legislation comes from. And the bill that Cindy was talking about was also part of the Democratic platform. These ideas are what we all agree to as part. So back to the question is, what would we do to, spur economic development? Bringing money to support the district is a big part of the senator's job. We need revenue for transportation and education, which is related to health care and jobs. Funding public universities and keeping them affordable and of good quality is also critical. But I'd like to host an entrepreneurs roundtable to invite entrepreneurs of all types to meet and share thoughts, strengths, and challenges in the district and across the state. To help make ends meet when our children were small, I founded a murals and decorative painting company, and I know how arts and economic development are closely linked. The arts can revitalize and create community. Focusing on the arts brings people joy in their lives. And Lexington has a vibrant arts and culture community, so does Arlington, but I'm not as familiar with Burlington's or the other parts of the district, and I would like to learn more about that. And as this district is quite diverse politically and demographically and economically, I would like to connect all 5 communities in a collaborative, maybe an art-based project, but a collaborative project in which any residents from the 5 communities could partake. And my strategy, as always, is to engage people from a range of perspectives in one-on-one conversations, small groups, conferences, that type of thing, to convene a meeting or a working group or a commission of some kind on this issue that would be an open public process designed to engage residents across the district to spur ideas for our economic development.
All right, to make it a little bit easier for the rotation, I just got the idea from Ms. Stewart. The person to the left who starts it, and the next person will be the person to the left. So Sean started it in the last rotation, then Ms. Friedman will start it this time. On the next question, Ms. Stewart will start it, and we'll keep going around and around, okay, in that order of answering, just to make it easier. All right, so the next one has to do with transportation. The Commonwealth's transportation infrastructure is critical to economic growth. What specific improvements would you like to see for your district? What is your priority for funding these initiatives? Do you see new technologies such as driverless vehicles having an impact on transportation planning? Okay, Ms. Friedman?
So I believe that transportation is so critical to so many areas that we are looking at. It's economics, to the economy, it's critical to housing, it's critical to education. It sort of runs through everything, all of these issues that we're talking about, that we're going to talk about tonight. First of all, I believe that transportation is a public good and needs to be public. And I believe that we need to start thinking about transportation, not just stopping at the 128 area, but looking out across our Commonwealth so that people not only have access to the economic hub that is in this area, but also they have access to housing and communities where they can raise a family and they can afford a house. And what we're seeing here in our district and throughout the whole district is that because our transportation system is so bad and so expensive, that we're all grouping in one area because that's where the jobs are, and it allows us to get into our cars and go to our jobs. So what we need to do is fund transportation so that it not only goes out to the communities beyond us, but it also goes I'm not sure what the word is, but it allows us to get around. It allows us to go from Lowell to Burlington. It allows us to go from Fenway Park to Dorchester. And we have a transportation administration that only looks at the moment. And we need a transportation system that actually looks outward and looks out for 20 years. So I think that we have to get very serious about funding it. And I think that one of the ways that we can get money into the economy, into the transportation system, is to look at the Fair Share Amendment. The Fair Share Amendment would allow incomes over $1 million to be taxed at a higher rate than income under $1 million. And that money would go to transportation and education. But I think until we actually solve our transportation problem, our housing costs and our economic stability are going to be at risk.
So I have, some basic thoughts here. Transportation infrastructure isn't just about the economic growth that is connected to so many things, as Cindy was saying. It overlaps everything, housing, education, and everything else. And so it's important that we are addressing it. And the question is, do we want good public transportation, and do we want to keep it public? Or do we want to sit in traffic for an hour or more getting to our jobs? So if we think that we want to make it better, then this is a way that we have to engage on this process to work out the specifics. I don't have all the specific answers. When we all get together, you guys have good ideas too. So we need to get together, we need to figure this out. I was proud of the leading role that I played in the Fair Share Amendment. Today was the second constitutional convention for supporting the Fair Share to move it to the ballot next November 2018. I was one of the 10 original signers of the initiative submitted to the Attorney General to move this process forward, and I look forward to continued work on that to see that it's passed. And when it is passed, there'll be an even split between public education and public transportation. That's the best thing we have on the table right now for how we're going to move this forward. So, if it's important, let's fund them. But let's talk about it and see what ideas bubble up. I think Senator Stan Rosenberg really challenged the legislature when he was talking about, how they had to be very nimble and very flexible when they had to respond to regulations for Uber and Lyft. The same thing is going to happen when we have autonomous vehicles hitting. So this notion that we're just going to always have a lot of time to make these things happen we're going to be challenged by time, by technology, and the world that we're living in right now, today. So in my experience, when people get together, that's when we get the best ideas.
So during my past 9 years in the House of Representatives, one of the proudest moments that I had was around starting the MBTA process and focusing not just on the 175 communities that pay the assessment into the MBTA, but looking at all 351 cities and towns on how the entire Commonwealth can benefit from investing not just in the MBTA, but every region's RTAs from Lowell to the Berkshires down to the Cape. think we benefit when we look at public transportation as a state. And that is why I started the caucus with Senator Eldridge and Senator Jalen and Senator Forey. And that's why we built coalitions to work to address improving our infrastructure. And I was proud to file legislation around the North-South Rail Link because that's so critically important to economic development. Proud to reduce the cost of the ride. Proud to stop service cuts here to Burlington. But what we really need to do is address that big dig gap because we pay 35 cents for every dollar that comes into the T on debt service. And that money could be used for state repair, for other infrastructure concerns, for you as riders. If you look at the growth around ridership on the green line, on the red line, it's not sustainable. In 2022, it is going to be 40% past ridership capacity as it is right now. So we really need to invest in public infrastructure and transportation. The only way to do it, first, is dealing with that big dig debt that was put on the rolls. I am so happy my fellow candidates support the fair share amendment. I worked so hard to get it on the floor of the House and the Senate. I passed it during the constitutional convention.
Number 4.
I got it last year with my colleagues, voted for it, it passed last session. I voted for it today with my colleagues in the House and the Senate. So actually voting for it, getting it passed, and you as voters are going to have a chance to vote on it in 2018. It would bring in the necessary revenue to fund this public infrastructure and health education. Thanks so much.
All right, the next question will be started by Ms. Stewart, and it has to do with the state budget. The approximate budget shortfall cited in early May was $462 million. Governor Charlie Baker floated the idea for a new health care assessment of dollars amount per employee on employers of a certain size if they do not offer health insurance, with projections that it could generate $180 million. Do you support the state budget that relies on generating $400 million in new revenue, including fees on Airbnb, rentals, and changes to how the state collects online sales tax? Do you support Senator Leader Stanley Rosenberg's call for a revision to the state tax code? What are your thoughts on how to address the current budget shortfall? Use program cuts, increase taxes, or increased fees?
Thanks for the question. So our decisions made in the late 90s and early 2000s have resulted in a $3 billion revenue shortfall every year. So when we go to build the budget, we're already $3 billion behind. So the fact that we're $500 million, $500 million behind is a testament to just how much we have had to work to get to that point, but we're still behind. The state budget struggles to keep up with the out-of-date models for revenue, and even our Republican governor recognizes that we need to invest, as he's put this notion of more taxes on the table. So we need to take a wholesale approach, but that's not the question. The question is, what kind of Commonwealth do we want? And once we decide that, how do we get there? So I just talked about the Fair Share Amendment, and Sean voted on that today at the Con-Con, and we're all going to be working on that, so that it passes in November, because that's our best shot going forward for $2 billion starting in January 2019. The online sales tax, that's low-hanging fruit, and it's aligned with our service economy. Tax expenditures, including film tax credits and other corporate tax incentives and loopholes, long overdue for review. The pilots, payments in lieu of taxes, are they actually being made? If not, why not? Then what? Taxes, I guess. Massachusetts values are supporting working families, protecting our environment, increasing government transparency, and ensuring all students have the opportunity to succeed. Senator Rosenberg has asked, are we prepared to maintain and strengthen our Commonwealth, or are we going to squander our great work together? Without adequate investments, working families fall behind and our communities will suffer. Even though U.S. News and World Report ranked Massachusetts at number 1 of all the 50 states, we languish at number 47 in transportation and 48th in revenue. Are we willing to fund the future, or are we going to rely on 20th century approaches with a 20th century tax code? If we want to continue to remain competitive, we need a 21st century revenue system. Do we agree? If we do, let's put together a plan and fund it and see it through.
I serve on the Ways and Means Committee, so we're constantly monitoring revenue projections and making sure that we use taxpayer dollars in the best way possible, and that is to fund services that are so critically important to Burlington and to the entire state. That is true. We're looking from anywhere from a $450 million to $500 million shortfall in the month of May into the beginning part of June. We'll see what the rest of the month of June looks like. Certainly one of our concerns is our president has been talking a lot about tax code changes. And we believe, many of the economists in Massachusetts and the Ways and Means Committee believe, much of the reason why we have a shortfall is because the wealthy in Massachusetts are hedging their bets in terms of deferred payments of their taxes, looking at what President Trump is going to do. We'll know more about that next month, but these are things that we have to monitor from month to month. Certainly one of my biggest concerns around restructuring the tax code, something I certainly support, is the issue around the expenditure budget. If you look at the expenditure budget and the billions of dollars in tax credits and corporate giveaways that we give out in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it could fund education and transportation for the next 10 years. A proposal that I've made is to get away or to repeal the Fidelity tax credit. In the 90s, we gave Fidelity, a corporation here in Massachusetts and across the world, a very lucrative tax credit where they would come and bring jobs. It's critical to grow jobs. I think we can all agree on that. But one of the problems with the tax credit is the economy got worse in the late 90s, and we eliminated fees and made corporations happy in cutting their taxes. One of the problems is those promise of jobs that Fidelity was going to bring here in the Commonwealth didn't grow. So the tax credit remained, but they cut more and more jobs for people here in Massachusetts. And my promise to the people of Massachusetts, which is the 4th Middlesex District, is that if you're any corporation, if you're going to cut jobs in Massachusetts, then that tax credit should be cut. And that's what I started.
Budget deficit, and as Marianne pointed out, we've been struggling with this for several years since the economy crashed in 2008. I agree with Sean that we need to look at our tax cuts. We actually have laws on the bill that are called clawbacks, where we are supposed to get money back from corporations when they don't agree to the negotiations that they've done with the state to provide jobs. But we don't do that. What our state does, because it's very business friendly, and to some extent that's important. We don't go after those clawbacks. We don't require people, our corporations, to give them back. And we're still giving out our tax expenditures, right? We just gave GE $157 million to come to a city that I maintain they really wanted to come to. And at the same time, we're allowing them to not pay their share of cleaning up Western Massachusetts rivers that they have polluted horribly, and that people in those areas are suffering from. So we need to be much louder and stronger, both the legislature but also the citizenry, to say stop this imbalance between corporations and people of influence and everyday people who are out there just trying to make a living and keep a roof over their heads and take care of their children. So this is going to take a concerted effort by all of us. In addition to that, I think that I agree with online taxes, that we need to start getting taxes from online sales. That's how people shop, and that's part of the reason why we're seeing such a deficit, because people are shopping online, and much of it is tax-free. I agree that Airbnb should be taxed, and I think there's one more thing that we can look at, and if I could just take a minute. Right now, we have private universities, 9 of them, that make enormous amounts of endowment money. 9 of our universities have over $1 billion in endowment. And I don't mean just a little over $1 billion. There's one place in Cambridge, Massachusetts that shall remain nameless that has a $42 billion endowment. They don't pay taxes, and they have an agreement to make payments in lieu of taxes, but they don't meet those either. Every year, they come up with a reason why they can't pay their share. They use our services, their students depend on what we have here. They provide enormous economic benefit to us, but I think over $1 billion is a little more than the Founding Fathers had in mind when they said, you can be tax-free and you cannot pay property tax. And if one of those universities just gave us 1% of that endowment money, we would be able to subsidize education, early education and higher education for all low-income students and for all low-income families and all middle-class families as well. So I think that's something that we have to look at.
All right, the next question is about health care. Do you agree there is a health care crisis in Massachusetts? If yes, what are your thoughts on addressing the health care crisis, as the current shortfall in revenue is partially attributed to the large numbers of people on Medicaid? Would you support any cuts to Medicaid? So the next one goes to Sean. Sean, yes.
Thank you, Larry, very much. There is a crisis in our health insurance system, and it's because of powerful influence that insurance companies have over deciding which benefits get agreed to and which ones don't. But this crisis is going to get a whole lot worse if Donald Trump and the House Republicans get their way. If the ACA is repealed, we will lose, instead of a $40 billion budget, mind you, we will lose starting with $1.3 billion in reimbursement. So that's right off the top. Some people believe if the ACA is repealed, that we can go back to Romneycare, Chapter 58, and our citizens in the Commonwealth will be covered. That is not accurate. It's not true. Because ACA expanded the amount of coverage, certainly for the most poor. And so if that occurs, the most poor in our Commonwealth will be the ones that become the sickest and lose their coverage. And the first place they will go is the emergency room. And that will mean increased costs on everyone. What we have to do is move towards single payer. It's something that I'm strongly supportive of, I'm proud of the support I receive from MassCare and But we have to do more in pushing back against Washington. Single payer is a great way to do it. It's an important way to do it. There's 2 bills at the State House that we co-sponsor, both of them in the House and the Senate, but the Republicans are actually taking it a step worse, a step backwards, and that is they have threatened to defund the Children's Health Insurance Program, which is the most successful program for children in poverty across the country. And if that happens, 160,000 kids in the Commonwealth will lose their health insurance. So not only did I file the single payer, co-sponsor the single payer bill, but I filed the act to continue the CHIP, Children's Health Insurance Program. If 160,000 kids lose their health insurance, we have to find a way to pay for it. And my proposal to eliminate the fidelity tax credit is a way to make sure 160,000 kids don't lose their health insurance. I think
I totally agree that there's a healthcare crisis. I think we all do. We all know that it's one of the most important issues for people today. I believe that healthcare is a human right, and I believe that everyone should have access to healthcare, and I believe they should be able to afford it. And I think we started out on that path, and now we're losing it. We're off the path. I believe that we have to be committed to containing costs, not allowing bend the curve of costs and to actually reduce them. Healthcare is the only industry where we actually allow it to increase costs by statute. They can raise their costs, and by the way, they can do it over inflation. Why is that? Why are they, other industries, able to keep costs, at least within inflation, but the medical industry isn't? And the healthcare industry has all of us believing that we can't reduce costs. They all believe, and they tell us we're in real trouble, they can reduce costs. But Massachusetts has the most expensive healthcare of any state in the most expensive healthcare country in the world. And our outcomes are not better. In fact, they're worse. So here's some things I think we can start to do. And I agree that single payer, Medicare for all would be wonderful. Here's what we do. First of all, providers are attracted to where the money is. Right now, the money is in medical specialists. If we need to change that. If we increased the primary care, what we give primary care physicians, by 20%, and we decreased what we gave those medical specialists, which made hundreds of thousands of dollars, by 20%, not only would we save money, but we would see much better outcomes. And primary care providers would get a better, a better living. But not only would we, in our country, we spend 5% on primary care, and the rest of it is on specialists. Every other country has that backwards. They spend 85% on primary care, and the rest of it is around special medical needs. Their outcomes are better. We can press employers to fight back and insurance companies so that they aren't just accepting the increases in healthcare costs and passing it on to us, the employees. That's something else we can do, and we can hold insurers accountable for controlling costs. When an insurer tries to control costs, the provider comes back and says, I'm not going to be part of your network, and then Blue Cross Blue Shield says, oh, come on over, we'll pay you what you want. There's no incentive to reduce costs. And finally, we need to have mental health and substance use disorder parity. Everybody should have save money, but we will have far better outcomes.
So we do have a crisis, as I stated in question 1. We all agree, and not only do we all agree, but all the other countries in the world agree, and they have it too. And they are all moving that way in the third world as well. So as we were discussing earlier, some of the tax expenditures that we talked about may yield some money. And in fact, some tax experts that I've spoken to have said that even if you pull back all the corporate loopholes and you pull back all the clawbacks, you really only get another $2 billion available to use. I mean, $2 billion isn't a small change, it's a big chunk of money. But it's not going to be enough to save healthcare with more money. We also need better transparency and accountability and in those incentives, and we need to support incentives for small business. So that's just to follow up on sort of that last question. But we're seeing that the road to single payer is long, long, and I think it is where we end up because it is the most affordable and it will make healthcare accessible to the many, to everyone. So not only healthcare, but mental health care and reproductive health care. And I will say that I will have to look very closely at the Medicaid funding before I consider any kind of cuts. And I affirm support for single-payer healthcare system that delivers healthcare as a basic human right, as stated in our Democratic platform, and fully funded addiction prevention and recovery programs to combat the deadly opioid crisis.
Okay, and I'm going to skip around a little bit on my list because there are certain questions that are of more general applicability. So the next question is about charter schools. Critics of charter schools have said that these schools take resources from public school systems. Charter schools were supposed to transfer innovative lessons learned to public schools. Critics also note that charter schools do not accommodate all special education students because they do not often provide the full range of services for these students. Therefore, it is said by some critics that comparisons between charter school performance and public school performance are not done on an equal student population basis. So, do you support the expansion of charter schools in this state? Please explain. So that question is from Ms. Friedman.
Thank you.
Let's start.
I believe that public schools are public and should remain public, and any attempt to privatize public schools is something that we should not only fight very hard for, but be very worried about. I agree with the critics. I think that having a discussion about expanding charter schools is it's too early. We don't even know. We don't compare charter schools with public schools on a level playing field. Those critics are right. The charter school can pick who comes to them, can decide who gets to stay, doesn't have to worry about all who comes, can find a way to reduce their special needs children or children with early language, English language learners, have a financial system that nobody gets to see, and gets money from the public, from our public coffers. We can't compare that to a public school. That's called a private school. That's what private schools get to do. And how can we decide whether to expand them or say that they're better without having a level playing field? So until that happens, until they play by the exact same rules that a public school has to play by, I am not interested in the discussion of whether we should expand. I also want to say one more thing, and I forgot what it was. So
You'll remember. I have a lot to say about charter schools, but there won't be enough time. So I'm just going to try to get to the main points. So the thing about the charter school law is really the original intent of the law has been corrupted, because core public schools have always been about taking every child into the school and educating them, educating all children. Charters were supposed to be these labs of innovation. They were not supposed to be about taking all comers. They were going to focus on it meant that they were going to be taking everyone, not everyone, on purpose, so they could try a seed program and then scale up and share with the district and share everything that was, great about it, and something new and different was the point and the purpose of charter schools. But it's ridiculous because charter schools have never lived up to that idea that was, conceptualized that way, and then it was written into law. And ever since, and I know the legislature has taken it up a couple of times since it came on more than 20 years ago, and it's just they've never gotten it right. So instead of proposing innovative ideas for learning, charters have become competitive with public schools, and they are not in competition, and they are in competition for all of the funding as well. There's a whole lot I want to say about this, but I think it's right that families want a personalized education for their students, for their children, and that's what we're seeing is happening in our education process, that we need to be focused on more personalized education, paying attention to what each child needs and addressing that so that they are able to succeed. And we all have a stake in the solid education of all our people, least of which are countless situations where our personal interests depend on others' competence, empathy, and compassion. And just in closing, I want to say that unimpeded expansion of charter schools represents a threat to adequate funding of core public schools, and that's why I don't support them.
Beacon Hill can be a pretty lonely place when you're independent and stand up to House leadership. That's the fact. And on 2 occasions over the past 9 years, when we've taken legislation up known as an act to close the achievement gap, all it really was a chance for them to raise the cap on charter schools. I voted no, and I was one of the few Democrats to do that. And the reason I voted no is because there is no ifs or about it. Funding, raising the cap, lifting the cap in the last ballot question comes directly from the same funding mechanism as public schools across our Commonwealth. Charter schools take funding directly out of Chapter 70. And it's wrong. And I am all in favor of closing the achievement gap. I think that's something we need to do. But I also believe that it needs to be more than raising the cap on charter schools. I don't think that gets the job done. Because what we should be doing is addressing poverty in our inner cities, talking about raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, the fact that the average family in the city of Boston that is trying to close the achievement gap and fix their public school system, families pay 35 to 40% of their income on housing costs. They can't get ahead under that revenue scheme. So we need to do more to close the achievement gap, but raising the cap on charter schools is not it. And I will tell you, when this debate came up in 2008 under a Democratic administration, mind you, we wanted to close the achievement gap, but the only option on the table was to increase the cap on charter schools, not funding education the way it should be and restoring the $500 million that public schools should receive every single year. And we also need to change that formula. If a charter school wants to open up in the Commonwealth to close the achievement gap, then they should fund it outside of Chapter 70 to make sure that that funding is not coming from public schools. And they also shouldn't be allowed under law to turn away students, ELL, and students with special education. I worked with a family who wanted to get their child into a charter school. It was a family outside my district in Boston, and he had severe special education needs, and he was able to get in. After the first semester, he was kicked out, and that is wrong. Thank you.
Okay, the next question will be started by Ms. Stewart and has to do with the well-known opioid abuse issue. What more can the state do to tackle the opioid abuse issue?
Well, I first want to acknowledge everything that local communities are already doing to take this on. Many are forming partnerships with health and law enforcement officials and educators. And this is personal. My brother's son, my nephew, died of a heroin overdose when he was 23. That was 5 years ago. His addiction problem was a result of other things as well, but it really got started when he was in high school and was recovering from a football injury. So I know many of you have a personal connection to this issue as well. We know a friend, a neighbor, or a loved one who has just been impacted by the result of the addiction crisis itself or by death. And for too long, the suffering of individuals has resulted in, it's been people who have been suffering with the addiction problem who've been going to jail, while pharmaceutical people get bonuses for increasing sales of product. Communities are taking action by recognizing this as a public health issue and partnering across sectors. Police are recognizing that they can be effective not by arresting, but by addressing the need to help people, and many are victims. And maybe you all saw the article, was it just a couple days ago, in the New York Times about the Arlington police and how they're doing this type of work to support the victims. So the question is, how can the state help? And I encourage this direction by, number one, finding funding for health and education programs, and two, holding pharmaceutical companies accountable. The state can be on the side of the people, as I am, and will continue to be as your senator.
Thank you very much. One thing, and I'm sure many people in here in Burlington have neighbors, family, personal stories of how this disease has touched your lives and ravaged all 351 cities and towns. This disease does not discriminate based on your zip code. It affects the people in Roxbury as much as the people in Weston. And this is a disease that we need to do more to address. I've been proud to sponsor legislation and co-sponsor some of the mandates around health insurance companies covering treatment. I was proud to vote and sponsor for the mandate of 14 days treatment for in-care substance abuse treatment for people across the Commonwealth on this disease, but 14 days is not nearly enough. I'm supporting legislation to move it to 30 days. 30 days is not enough, but it's a start. What we really need to do, however, is around the area of mental health, around the area of continuum of care. It's the only way we're going to get around this horrible disease, is as young people, people in their 30s and 40s, and so on, go in for treatment, making sure insurance covers that treatment for a 30-day period, but when they leave, that there's a continuum of care, of wraparound services, whether it be employment, whether it be housing, you name it. I'm 32, and I will tell you that a lot of my friends lost their life through this epidemic. And one of the single most problems that we face as young people, many people can't find a job, they can't find housing, and they turn to this disease. And once you become an addict, you stay an addict. And the only way we're going to address it is around mandating insurance companies to cover the treatment, but also around the continuum of care and making sure that our young people and all people impacted by the disease, of all ages, are able to get that critical support to make sure that they don't succumb to the disease. Again, thank you.
We clearly need a multi-pronged approach to address this issue. And I agree with both what Sean and Mary Ann said. I think there's also some other things that I would look at. If you look at a lot of the data around substance use disorder, you will find that it's a dual diagnosis. And a significant number of people who have substance use disorder also have a mental illness. We don't treat people with mental illness. We send them to jail, and we ask our courts and our jails to give them treatment. They are the de facto treatment. And until we provide medical care for behavioral health that is accessible and truly quality and patient-centered, we're not going to solve this problem. We're going to continue to see people use substances to self-medicate. It's a huge problem. 40% of the people in jail right now have mental illness. That's in addition to people who have substance use disorder and a mental illness. We have done work on a pilot program that has directed the Department of Mental Health to find people who have serious and persistent mental illness that are frequent users of emergency rooms and interaction with the police. And we have said to them, go out, find those people, and they all know who they are, and find a treatment model that is patient-centered versus insurance-centered. And guess what? The outcomes are astounding. Their reduction in substance use has been about 80%. They're 95% in treatment. They have housing. They have reduced about by 99% their interaction with police and with emergency rooms. This is treatment that works. We need to train our police so that they're better able to handle people who aren't criminals, but who are sick. And finally, this is an issue of economics, okay? With all due respect to all of us, and I have very intimate knowledge of substance use disorder and mental illness, we used to call this a crime. When it happened in our cities, it was a crime. Now it's an illness. It's always been an illness. And part of this is about economics. When people don't have any hope, when they don't have jobs, when they don't have access to education, they turn to what they can do. And our cities have been full of people selling drugs, selling a false hope, and we need economic security. We need to address the issues of inequality. We need to address the incredible gap between the haves and the have-not. We need to do all of those things in order to address this problem.
Okay, are we done with that? Okay. So the next question We'll start with Representative Garbely, I believe, and it has to do with senior housing. How will your efforts as a state senator impact housing for seniors in your district?
Thank you very much, Larry. This is a huge issue facing the 4th Middlesex District, but it's also a huge issue facing the Commonwealth. And it's a multi-pronged approach of how to make sure we take care of our seniors across the Commonwealth. One is stock housing. We need to increase the stock housing and be developing current housing plots around the Commonwealth to update,
I came late, but I says I had to come after the flag too.
I'm glad you made it.
That is extremely important. We also have to increase the Massachusetts rental voucher. The MRVP is used for homeless families. And I was one of the sponsors in terms of increasing it to give out more vouchers. But recently, the MRVP, the increased funding over the past couple of years, has been used to help seniors find housing. And that's something that is used by each of the housing authorities across the district. That's something that I've been working on in terms of earmarking potential vouchers as we increase the MRVP to senior housing. Also maintaining and growing the senior circuit breaker. I think that's something that's extremely important and something that I strongly support. Also increasing home care services, but also supporting in all our housing authorities as seniors age, making sure they can stay in their homes, but that the services increase along with as they age in place. And that's something that's extremely important. And that comes around supporting home care to make sure that if a senior wants to stay in his or her home, they have the ability to do so with the wraparound services and not have to go to a nursing home. It's much better for that family to make that decision, and it's cost beneficial to stay in home rather than going to a nursing home, but the funding needs to match, and the funding needs to be there, increasing funding for home care.
I think one of the additional issues in senior housing is that people can no longer stay in their houses because they can't afford to. Their property taxes are too high. And when they go to sell it, they're priced out of the markets in the towns that they live in because the houses are so expensive. So I think we absolutely, I agree, need to increase our housing stock. But I think we also have to look at our property taxes and what we require our property taxes to pay for. And a lot of that is education. And I think the state needs to play a much bigger role in that so that we can relieve some of that burden on cities and towns. And so that we're not always constantly having to raise our property taxes so that we can actually pay for education. I think the other piece of this is, again, back to transportation. So people live where they live because they need to get to their jobs. What happens is, because we have no transportation, but we have good paying jobs, we all kind of group together in the 4th Middlesex, Suffolk County, and around our economic hub. And until we can provide transportation so people have more access to their jobs, but can live in communities where they actually can afford their houses, we are going to see this squeezing of our housing prices going up, our property taxes going up, and no relief for our seniors when they need to downsize or when they can no longer afford to stay in their houses. So I think we need to really look at how we fund our education system, the burden we put on our cities and towns, and also how we can increase access to our economic hub to relieve some of the pressure on the incredibly high cost of housing in the 4th Middlesex.
So this is a difficult, multi-layered issue. So think about this. Our workforce is aging. By 2030, more than 3/4 of our population growth will be among the over 65 cohort. So people will be retiring at a much higher rate than we can replace in the workforce. So we have an increasing aging population, and seniors do want to stay in their communities to maintain their social relationships and their quality of life, but there is limited housing available for them. Luxury condos are being built with incentives for builders that are screwed up. And once again, transportation rises as a critical piece of the puzzle. And I firmly believe that it is a matter of the quality of life. So what do we value? Is it taking care of our seniors? If it is, let's make a plan and fund that. As your senator, I will partner with all of the stakeholders to develop a reasonable, rational solution together. But you have answers too, and we all need to know what they are. So I want to invite you in. It's not just about voting the right way on this issue that we all agree is so important. This is about shifting policy over time, and it isn't something that you can be impatient about.
Okay, so we're going to go for 2 more questions, and then we'll go to some, I saw some interesting questions here on some issues that haven't been touched upon. We'll go to that, and then we'll go to the closing statement. So the next question for them has to do with our renewable energy industry. How will you pursue a policy at the State House that will legislatively encourage and financially support the continued expansion of the renewable energy industry in Massachusetts? So this one goes, I believe, to Ms. Friedman.
Thank you. So the renewable energy industry isn't just an issue for the environment, it's also an issue for our planet and our world and our children and our grandchildren. I think that there are a couple things we can do right away. We can increase the renewable portfolio standard, which is how much money utility companies have to invest in renewable energy. Right now, they have to invest 1% of their portfolio a year. If we raise that to 2%, we would assure that our renewable energy industry, which currently is responsible just in solar for about 29,000 jobs, that industry, solar, wind, hydro, would continue to grow. And the more it grows, the more renewable energy we have available, and the closer we get to a reduction in final reduction in carbon-producing energy. The second thing we need to do is we need to continue our offshore wind work. We need to continue our solar, our solar industry. We have lots of money that we can put to that if we get the utility companies invested in actually supporting renewable energy. And finally, we have to modernize our grid so it can support renewable energy, okay, so that we can use it efficiently so it can get to the places that it needs. And these are all things that we can do, and we can force and require the governor to uphold his promise to give 1% of the budget to the environment. And so far, he has not lived up to that promise, and we need to encourage him to do that. If we get the governor and the utility companies to get on the same page, then we will be able to increase our renewable energy. We will be able to pay for it, okay? And then we won't be subject to these incredible volatile swings of natural gas that we go through every winter and hope, oh my God, I hope it stays low enough so we can afford it. So I think those are some things we could do right away.
So innovation is our edge to this issue. The problem is the incentives keep changing, and they're not reliable. Those are the tax incentives that we're trying to get solar off the ground some years ago, but we've outgrown that model, so it keeps changing, and we're not able to take full advantage of it. But solar, if we get to it, solar energy is the low-hanging fruit on that piece, and we do need to develop wind and other sources. But we need stable incentives. Don't overdo it, because what happens is they become oversubscribed really quickly, and that leaves a lot of people out, and they're oversubscribed by just a few people. So we need to make progress developing innovative solutions. And those are the solutions that aren't going to come from big companies. That's going to come from the local entrepreneurs. As you well know, in Burlington, that's just this is like the mecca for entrepreneurs. There's so much happening here. It's really great. But the tension that Cindy was referring to actually around this the power grid and the renewable energy industry is because of the lack of innovation for how we store the energy. And the reason that everything goes so up and down is because we don't have a place to put the energy. And if we could innovate and get that going, then it would bring down the price. For right now, it's really crazy expensive for those batteries that you need, either in bulk or as one person, in your house. They're very expensive, but the more people who can buy in, the more the price comes down, like it does for computers, like it does for organic food. So again, with the reasonable energy policy, we can lead on this issue, and that should be our goal.
Last session, one of the things that we did in the legislature was to increase the solar net metering cap by 1%. We should have done it by 6%. That was how we adequately address increasing that cap around jobs and growing the solar industry. That was really the only way to do it. Why didn't we do it? Well, if you walk around the State House at the same time the legislation was being discussed, you would have seen the executive of Eversource and other utility companies. The utility companies and their lobbyists have such a hook onto policy in Beacon Hill that we need to do something about it. And now what's coming down out of Washington, this is a moral issue, and we need to act. Because of the Paris Accords that President Trump announced last week of pulling out of that horrible decision that he made that makes us look like a laughing stock to the rest of the world in addressing this issue. So each state needs to step up, and that's why I filed at the beginning of this session, working with environmental groups across Massachusetts, the 100% renewable energy by 2050. And what it says would create a concrete roadmap on how to get to 100% renewable energy in all sectors by 2050, and the utility sectors taking away that lobbying power that they have and their ability to just shift costs to consumers by 2035. That's the only way we're going to really, truly address this issue. But it's great to file a bill. What you have to do is work with your colleagues to get it passed. And on this bill, I put a coalition together of over 50 members of the House and the Senate, including your great representative, Ken Gordon, to address this issue. And this is the first time we filed this bill. And I think it has serious legs, maybe because of the influence that the Eversource utilities have. It's going to take several years to get this passed, but that's what legislating is about. It's about building coalitions with your legislators and legislators across the Commonwealth in moving progressive policy forward. And the first year being that we filed this bill, we have a fourth of the legislature signed on to it. A lot of that is because of your input in demanding your legislators to sign on to the legislation. And obviously there's a lot more we can do, but this legislation needs to pass to make sure Massachusetts has a roadmap against the federal government on taking climate change seriously and as a moral imperative. Thank you.
All right, the next question will be started by Ms. Stewart, and it involves a question on the prearranged list, and it's also a question that was submitted. So I'll read both of them because they're almost exactly the same. What will you do as senator to promote regular communication to your constituents in your district? And the other one says, as a state senator, how will you stay connected with each of the communities in your district? So, Ms. Stewart.
Yeah. So first, this is why I'm running. It's to engage everybody in a process of communicating with people about what matters in our community, in our district, and across the Commonwealth. Unlike some elected people, I really do want to hear from you. I've given this some thought, and I have some ideas about where to start. And there are so many new technologies and apps and platforms to bridge the divide between face-to-face. I think it's important to have face-to-face meetings. And if you elect me, we will make a decision on this together. And I know how I like to be communicated with, but it might not be the way that you like to be communicated with. So we need to have that conversation and come to some kind of mutual understanding. I teach social media skills at Middlesex Community College, so I'm going to be the best at doing this. We will meet regularly, face-to-face, and in between times, we'll figure out how we're going to communicate. So we have the technology to do it. We're coming on the dawn of the third decade of the 21st century. Let's do this thing. We can, we're asking our students in schools to have these skills. We should model that too as officials.
Thank you very much. I want to be your voice, but more in the legislature, but more importantly, I want to be your partner on addressing some of the major issues facing the quality of life for people here in the Commonwealth. As a legislator, one of my #1 roles is not just communicating with my constituents from Arlington and Medford, but working with them and staying involved in their lives and really trying to partner with them on serious, important issues. And I want to be your state senator because I want to partner with you. I want to be here in Burlington. Talking to several selectmen during this campaign, and I've knocked on 200-300 doors in Burlington so far. What I hear is, you're from Arlington. How are you going to understand what Burlington residents think? Well, if you're a constituent of mine in Arlington, you probably have my cell phone number. You probably talk to me on a constant basis, and you know the kind of constituent service that I provide for the people of Arlington, and that's what I want to do for the people here in Burlington. I want to return your calls, I want to return your emails, I want to partner with you, but I want to have a dialogue on how to move our Commonwealth forward. I will be in this community all the time. That's something that is promised to me. There are terrific candidates in this race, but I'm running because I really want to be your voice. And I want to be here for a long time in building partnerships with you and passing policy that's going to make an impact, not just for Burlington, but for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You can ask Ken Gordon. Ken and I work constantly together on a whole host of issues. You couldn't have a better representative than Ken Gordon. I'm excited to partner with Ken, and I'm excited to partner with you, and I hope you can give me that opportunity. Thanks so much.
I believe that I have a pretty good track record of engaging with the communities in the 4th Middlesex. As Senator Donnelly's chief of staff, not only was he present, but it was part of my job to ensure that the communication stayed fluid, and that you had access to us and we had access to you. And I think that I have a track record of working with people on the Mary Cummings Park. I have a track record of working with your representative on moving home rule legislation up through the into the legislature and ensuring that those bills get through. We have always had an open door policy, and we will continue to do that. We had office hours in Burlington every month. Ken was here every month, and when he wasn't here, I was here. I don't think people could argue that you did not have a presence from your senator over the past 9 years in this town, and I will continue to do that. Because we are, not only is it important for us to address the issues that individuals have, and people call our office every day, all the time, to sort of address their needs to get to that huge state bureaucracy. And we have helped them. And I don't think there's anybody that has sent us an email or called us that hasn't had a response or we haven't interacted with. But we're also the bridge. We are your town's bridge to that state government. And when you as a community decide something, and it's your local choice to do what you do, and you need help getting that through to the state, That's our job, and I think we have done that very well. I'm very proud of what we've done and how we've served this district, and I want to continue it, and I know I can continue it as your senator because I've been so involved in it in the past 9 years, and I truly have a track record of doing it. Thank you.
All right, now we're in the next phase of the discussion. I've looked at all the questions, and because this is an issue-oriented forum, I've selected 3 that I thought touched upon issues that have not been discussed. And so I'll ask the 3 questions, and then we'll go to closing statements and try to end reasonably on time. The first question will be started by Representative Donnelly, I believe, and it says, would you support the marijuana bill as passed last November by the people? Some of you may know, there's been a bill filed in the state legislature that seems to depart from what the voters intended. And so I think that's the basis for this question.
Right. Whatever the legislature does, we need to keep the will of the voters intact. That is the most important thing that we can do. There was a proposal that came out that the House was going to increase the tax rate. Right now that is on hold. I think it's because several of our constituents across the Commonwealth reached out to their reps, and that bill is not coming up for debate tomorrow, which I believe is a good thing. I think it's important that we get the marijuana legislation done right. I think that's important, especially around the issue of adolescence and exposure to our community. But the voters in this district and across the Commonwealth made their voice heard very loudly, and that was that they wanted to legalize recreational marijuana in the Commonwealth. And I think some of us can agree with that decision, some of us can disagree with it, and that's okay. But the voters have decided. And whatever Beacon Hill wants to implement, we need to make sure that the will of the voters who voted for it in good faith, that we keep that promise to what they did. Now, I do believe some things need to change around adolescents' use to it, and around the issue of developing the technology around breathalyzers to make sure that public safety is addressed. But recreational marijuana is the law of the land, and the legislature should pass no bill that impedes what the voters decided on election day. Thank you.
I am quite worried that what we're seeing with the marijuana bill is exactly what we saw with medical marijuana. Somebody came to me the other day and said, we haven't even really rolled out medical marijuana correctly. And I work with children who are epileptic, and we go to another state to get medical marijuana for her. And this is a kid who's had seizures every single day for the past 15 years. And ever since she started smoking or taking a particular kind of cannabis, her seizures have completely stopped. And it's been about a year that this has happened, okay? So we're watching the legislature do the same exact thing. The House came out with a bill that would tax marijuana at 28%. Guys, we don't tax alcohol at 1%, okay? And so what we're looking at is again, I think the legislature getting in the way of what the voters have asked for. The bill that was in that we voted on said that there would not be marijuana available to adolescents. It set the age, okay, at 21. We have, so it's very clear that that can't happen. But now they're saying we're going to tax it at 28%, which is going to turn it right back into an underground economy. We're not going to address the issues that we wanted to address by making it legal so that we could actually tax it. And the other thing that that bill wants to do is it wants to take the voice away from local communities. That bill says, the one that the regulation bill is saying, well, the voters don't decide by ballot on whether or not they want marijuana stores in their community. The selectmen will decide, or the aldermen will decide, or the governing body will decide. That's not what that's not what people voted for. They voted to have their voice heard at the local level and at the state level. And we are watching we're watching the legislature, and right now it's the House, whittle away what the voters wanted. So I am against what's going on right now.
Voted to support the marijuana initiative, question 4, last fall. And it's part of the process that, the legislature has to take it up and implement the regulations. And so when they implemented this commission to take a closer look and start, thinking, and I was thinking what Cindy was saying in terms of the medical marijuana, what a mess that felt like, because it was like, is it happening? How is it happening? How do we get, where does it go? Where do you go? And I have a friend of mine who was suffering from cancer, and this is how he was, trying to figure it, but he finally figured it all out, and then he was able to access. I think, I support the main provisions of the law, and I was waiting to kind of see what these recommendations could be, and I, got the sense that it was going to be upwards of 28%, and when you start adding in the local taxes and you're talking 30% anyway, and like Cindy said, we don't tax any of the other, we don't tax alcohol anywhere near that rate. So it is concerning. People are very anxious about where this is going, and all I can say is that I hope there will be a tremendous outcry from people from outside the State House when they do hear what's going to happen, that they do make those calls and talk and calls and calls and calls. So I am also very concerned about where we are with this.
All right, the next audience-sponsored question, Ms. Friedman will start. And this one's a rather interesting one. It says, at our recent Burlington Master Plan Housing Forum, we learned that condominium owners are the second largest group of homeowners in Burlington. However, based on Massachusetts state law, condo owners have no rights relative to the ownership of what may be their most valuable asset, namely their home. Massachusetts law only covers a lien when an owner is in default. Late August, the state of New Hampshire changed its laws to give condo owners a much larger say in the management of their condo by providing more timely information and the ability to vote for the condo expenditures. What will you do to bring about these much-needed changes for the protection of condominium owners? So, sorry about that one. Ms. Friedman.
Wow, that's a fascinating, first of all, it's a really interesting question, and it's also something that I didn't know, that condo owners were the largest owners. I have worked on issues of condo management, and I've worked on issues of governance of condos. I'm not really familiar with the issues of the law and liens on condos. So this is clearly something that I would be looking at, and I would do a lot of research and try and figure out what's out there. But I have to be really honest, I'm not really conversant with this issue. So I would look to the community, and I would look to the housing committees in the Senate to help me understand what's going on.
So I didn't know that condo ownership was number 2 either. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And what's that? So condo ownership. Who knew? Number 2. Is in terms of ownership. So I didn't know that. But in a case like this is what I'm talking about. This is where I would start. I would start where I always start, which is meeting with the people in the condo associations, talking with them, meeting with them, hearing from everybody, not necessarily talking, mostly listening, because like Cindy, this is not an area of expertise for me. But I would meet with them, I would want to hear what their concerns are, I would want to know, I would want to connect with the planning board, the housing board here in Burlington or wherever the community happens to be, and really hear what's happening and get a context for why this is a problem and why it's coming forward now. Maybe there are some other related issues that surround it. So I would want to get a full understanding of that, and then I would want to do some more research about what's happening in the committees in the State House. Are they seeing this other places across the Commonwealth? Do we, so share information, find out what's going on, find out what we could potentially do, come back, meet with folks, talk about what needs to happen, work out a plan, and address it in the State House if that's where we need to go with it.
So this legislation, if it's the one that I believe it is, really originated from Cape Cod and around the concerns that a lot of the Cape Cod residents and condos owners have concerns with some of the large developers and some of the owners around their rights. It was originally filed by a gentleman named Cleon Turner, who I worked with a few years ago. I have supported the legislation in the past in terms of giving condo owners a right place at the table in terms of setting the policy and giving them some teeth in the law against developers and management on things inside the condo that happen. And I support the premise or the concept of it outside of the condo as well, but I think further conversations really have to happen between the condo owners and the town of Burlington when it comes to outside of the condo. But it is a piece of legislation I have filed in the past. It certainly hasn't been one of my top priorities, but part of a senator or a representative is to work with constituents directly on pieces of legislation. We as a Commonwealth are known as the free petition state, and that means that as your legislator, I must file legislation on your behalf. And that's a good thing, because we get to work on issues that we care about together. So obviously somebody in this audience may be a gardener who care very much about this issue. And I promise you that if I'm elected to the Senate, and if I'm not, if I stay in the House, I will work with you on this bill. Either you can contact my office or Representative Gordon's office, and we'll work with you on it. Either I get the promotion to the Senate or if I stay in the House. Thanks so much.
Okay, the last audience-sponsored question. Can each of you please describe your stance on a woman's reproductive rights and health, including access to no-cost, FDA-approved contraception and health care, and whether or not to have an abortion? So this will be Ms. Stewart.
So I support, so no one comes to a decision about having an abortion lightly. That is a very heavily weighted decision. That is not something anybody thinks to do first. It's a decision, and then that's the point. It's a choice, and I fully support a woman's right to choose it. There are many issues, and there's a good bill right now, the Access Bill, that is all around co-pays, for birth control. I think there should be free birth control, frankly, for everybody. But this is to support under the current health care plan, the affordable health care plan, and who knows what's going to happen with that next, but whatever. So the co-pays are not supposed to happen, but some insurance companies think that they should be, and they should be having these co-pays. We shouldn't have the co-pays. It should just be a right that you can get the birth control that you need. And there's also a question about the age of parental consent for women 18 years old, younger, 18 years old and younger, to require parental consent, or a judge gives the okay for that woman to have an abortion. And there's a proposal to lower that age, and I support that as well.
I'm pro-choice. I'm leading in the House with Representative Pat Haddad, who's the Speaker pro tem. She's filed legislation this term as a response to what's happening in Washington to mandate health insurance companies to cover the cost of contraceptive care in all areas. It's about human rights, quite honestly, and this is something that we need to pass. It should have been something that we passed 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but again, health insurance companies have a lot of power on Beacon Hill. I've filed and passed a lot of mandated benefit bills, and they're not easy to get through because of the influence they have, and it's all centered around money. But this is a piece of legislation, not just because of what's happening in Washington, but even before Washington, that was the right thing to do. It's right for women's health, it's right for our economy, it's right to who we are as human beings, and it's something that we need to pass. Because of what's happening in Washington, the moral imperative to pass this is only increased even more because you have a Supreme Court that is being stacked. I'm hoping that Ruth Bader Ginsburg makes it the next 4 years, but it's being stacked with pro-life judges, at least one that we know of. And they will continue to work to chip away on that right. And mandating states to not offer benefits will be part of that plan from Washington. So we need to make a strong statement in protection of women's health. And this is a piece of legislation that would do it, as well as other things, like paid family medical leave, increasing the minimum wage. We passed the pay equity bill last session, but we need to strengthen it. We need to strengthen pay equity and hold companies accountable who violate the law. Thank you.
I believe that everybody has a right to their own body. And I believe that we get to make those decisions. And I do not support anything that tells me what I can or cannot do with my body. I am very clear about how I feel about this issue. And I see it as a way of demeaning people and in a certain way of oppressing us, okay? I am absolutely in support of a woman's right to choose what she does with her body. And I will vigorously oppose, like I have done since 1970 when I was marching in the 70s for the Equal Rights Amendment, that women maintain that right and that we have full access to all of the health care that we need. And if that includes reproductive health, if that means birth control, that we have a right to that. We should protect it. It should be accessible to us, and we should be able to afford it. And I will do everything I can to ensure that our bodies stay ours. And that's true for men and what happens with men's bodies, okay? It's our being. And so I will fight to support that right.
Okay, so we'll now go to closing statements. And I guess the first person to talk will be Representative Garbely. I think Mary Ann Stewart did the last one. So 2 to 3 minute closing statements, followed by I will talk for much less than 1 minute to close out the event, and then we'll have a nice round of applause. Thank you.
Larry, thank you so much for hosting this event. You told me this is the first time that you've hosted this, and congratulations to you and to the Burlington Democratic Town Committee. And Cindy for being here as well, and for being great candidates for this position. The people of Burlington have an important and I believe very profound choice to make on June 27th to see who succeeds our wonderful past Senator Ken Donnelly. Ken Donnelly was a close friend of mine. For the past 10 years we've worked side by side, he in the House and him in the Senate, working on some of the major policy issues impacting the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I want to continue his legacy, but I also want to build on it. I want to build on the progress that he has made. Over the past 9 years, I have worked with legislators from across all of our 351 cities and towns on issues that impact everybody. And I want to move from a body of 100, 160 to a body of 1 out of 40 to be able to make more of a positive, but also more profound impact in the legislation that we pass. I also am hoping to be your state senator, if you'll have me, for a long period of time. I want to hit the ground running because of my legislative experience that gives me the ability to do that. But as your state senator, I'll be able to continue with the relationships I've built to pass meaningful legislation. And the issues that we've talked about, right? Healthcare, transportation, you name it. These are not simple solutions that a representative or a senator will be able to pass in 15 minutes. They take serious ideas, they take filing legislation, and they take working with members of the House and members of the Senate to move legislation forward. That's what I've done as a representative for the great people of Arlington, Medford. That's what I want to do as your state senator. And I want to serve long enough to be able to get these things done. And I would respectfully ask that you consider me for your vote, and I hope to earn it on June 27th. Thanks so much for that.
Government has never been more important than it is today. We're seeing the rolling back of all the protections and funding and things that we at the Commonwealth have worked so hard to get. And this is a really critical time. We as a state have to hold the line. We have to be the, using a terrible analogy, the wall that prevents us from losing what makes us so unique and so special as a Commonwealth. I bring decades of solving problems to this job as a manager, as a public school teacher. I have private sector experience, I have public sector. I have brought all that to the work in the Senate and to my relationship with Ken. I understand the Senate. I know how it works. I have relationships with all of those colleagues and relationships with staff. And I believe that I can truly continue to make an impact as I, with the senator, have done for the past 9 years. The other thing is I understand the 5 communities in the 4th Middlesex. I've been working with you for the past 9 years. I know what your issues are. I know the uniqueness of each community, and I have helped you solve issues that you have brought to the senator and brought to our office over those past 9 years. I believe I really have a proven track record of getting things done. I also bring an enormous drive to fight for the issues that matter to you and that matter to me. And I think that I, with you, can represent the 4th Middlesex in a way that we all would be proud. I hope I can work with you. I hope that I will get your vote. And I thank you so much for sitting here for 2 hours and listening to us answer these questions. You really are generous, and you prove that people out there still really do care. So thank you very much.
Thanks to everybody for coming out, and thanks to Larry and the Democratic Town Committee and to Sean and Cindy in this whole process. I'm running for state senator because I'm a champion for a system that responds to the needs of all and of our collective vision for shared prosperity. And you've heard my approach to how we're going to move together into the future. Politics is about the art of thinking differently, and government is about the decisions we make together. As a state and community advocate for the last 20 years, I've been speaking up on the issues that matter to people and families, and I've been leading with both passion and respect for the voices, issues, and concerns of my fellow and sister residents across the Commonwealth. By responding to proposals in the State House, giving public testimony, writing letters to legislators, and teaching others how to do the same. Your senator isn't a manager, your senator is a leader. I can't say enough about good Ken Donnelly. He loved the people that he served. He had so many great ideas, wonderful ideas, and I believed in so many of them, like the improved services for veterans, like support for hardworking families, and speaking up for organized labor. And as we look at that national picture, I'm asking, are we prepared for the possible repeal of health care? Are we prepared for the possible repeal of Roe v. Wade? Are we prepared to respond to the reckless proposals from an utterly unqualified federal Secretary of Education and for no support whatsoever for climate change coming out of Washington? We must prepare to protect from these outrageous and mean proposals, and that means more imagination, more persistence, and a fresh perspective for the long term, and that's what I can bring to the Senate. Ken Donnelly was one of a kind, and as good as he was, he didn't have all of the answers to all of our problems. He had great ideas, and I will build on them, but I'm not Ken. I'm Mary Ann, and I have my own ideas, and I'm listening to the people of the 4th about your ideas too. I'm confident that we can do this work together, but I cannot do it without your vote, and I ask for your vote on Tuesday, June 22nd.
All right, so that concludes our forum. I'd like to first thank you, the audience, for spending 2 hours plus with us. And I'd like to note that we are very fortunate to have 3 very well-qualified primary candidates before us. State Representative Sean Garbely, representing the 23rd Middlesex District currently. Ms. Cindy Friedman, who is the Chief of Staff for the late Senator Donnelly. And finally, Ms. Mary Ann Stewart, member of the Massachusetts Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. Thank you very much and have a good evening.